So with the new iPhone 16 Pro Max here, a lot of you guys are wondering, should you upgrade or should you pass this year onto this brand new model from Apple? Now, I made this video especially that I believe that most of you guys out there, if you are upgrading, you won't be upgrading from, say, an iPhone 15 Pro Max. There will be the few rich among you who are doing that, who upgrade every single year. But I'd say the majority of you guys are probably like on a 2-year contract, or maybe, you start to upgrade every 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, something like that. And I believe this video is more targeted towards you guys, helping you out to make it worthwhile to upgrade to an iPhone 16 Pro Max or keep the iPhone 14 Pro Max, maybe keeping it on like a SIM only kind of contract that you keep the phone and just get yourself a brand new sort of contract with that. But this is why I'm going to help you out with this video today. And I think the best thing we can do first of all in this comparison for both these phones is compare in how they actually look in design, because on the face of it here they don't look that much different, but you'll be quite surprised here. So then, here we are then with both of the phones, and I just pick them up here. Just look at the sides here first of all. Obviously we have the stainless steel on the 14 Pro Max, and obviously the 16 Pro Max we actually have the titanium. But for the sides we actually have one extra button. Obviously we have that extra sort of capture button, but you can see the differences here. Obviously it was more of a shine with the stainless steel compared to the titanium we have now. And then overall then, if we look at the bottom, this is probably one of the other big changes. We have USB-C on the 16 Pro Max and a lightning port still on the old 14 Pro Max. And obviously the speed differences are different there. Obviously we get USB 3 now on the titanium 16 Pro Max. But on the other side here for buttons, obviously the action button's been added now instead of that silencer. We've also still got the SIM cards obviously on this version of these iPhones, as you can see right here. But then at the top, not much difference again. You've got the antennas really in the same place. Apple have kept them in the same sort of design, so no big issues there whatsoever. But really on the back they look very similar, but I will tell you this now, that the iPhone 16 Pro Max square is ever so slightly bigger than the square on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. But really the back sort of glass and everything is different, and you can see here there's not much in it between both of these phones, except for maybe the 16 Pro Max is slightly larger, as you can also see right here. Now, next of all, what I want to talk about is the actual screens on these phones. Now, believe it or not, the screen technology in both of these are almost identical. So you actually get a ProMotion on this, you get Dynamic Island, you get all the great stuff, you get up to 2000 nits of brightness. I think the only main key difference I'd say is with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it can go all the way down to 1 nit of brightness. I'm not quite sure how low the 14 Pro Max can go, but obviously the 16 Pro Max can definitely go lower there. And the other thing that you may notice here is obviously the bezels are definitely thicker on the 14 Pro Max. They're thinner on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and because of that, and also because it's slightly larger, as you can also see here, we actually have now a 6.9 inch display on the 16 Pro Max, where we've still got the 6.7 inch display on the 14 Pro Max. And I can tell you this now, holding both these phones, there isn't that much difference. You can feel it in your hands really. Apple have done a really great job there, but obviously what I will say is it is slightly bigger what you're getting on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Really personally, I've watched some videos and things on this and I can't really notice the difference really, that it feels so much larger to me. But just be aware of that. But obviously, like I said, you get ProMotion and things like this. Both these phones can go up to 120 Hz refresh rate, all the way down to 1 Hz with both of these phones. So really, for that kind of comparison, there isn't much in it. And also the clarity is around about 460 pixels per inch on both these phones. So again, it can look exactly the same in that way. But then, moving on, you'll probably want to know what's the difference in performance, because we have the A16 inside the 14 Pro Max, and obviously we now have the A18 Pro inside the 16 Pro Max. What are the differences here in benchmark? And first of all, let me show you Geekbench 6. And obviously I've got them all ready here to go, ready loaded up. So let's go into the CPU benchmark on both of these, and let's click run CPU benchmark. So we'll let this run. Obviously what I'm going to do is I'm just going to speed it up, because this will just take forever obviously. So let's get this sped up to the end of the test, and obviously, yeah, here we go. The iPhone 16 Pro Max, you can see here on single core performance, 3,339 and multi-core is 8,101. Way faster, obviously, than the single core performance and multi-core performance than what we got in the A16. Now, obviously, I am running iOS 18.1, I am going to say here, but you can't really, well, you can run iOS 18.1 on the older iPhone, but you're not really going to get many benefits, really. There's not many changes, but you can see the sort of difference here on average kind of numbers, what you're going to get. But then let's try out some GPU tests with 3D Mark. I've done Wildlife Extreme here. We've got this all loaded up and ready to go to compare both of these to see what the differences is. So let's get them started. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to speed this up to the end because it's probably the best thing here. And we look at the results, what we've got. So then, let's have a look. With graphics scores, there is a difference here, big difference. Just looking at the frames per second, the average one, we got a total of 18.1 frames per second on the 14 Pro Max, where we get 25.2 frames per second average on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So you can actually see there is a big difference there. And the overall score, 3,024 compared to 4,215. So yeah, there are some differences. Now, obviously, both these phones can run iOS 18. Obviously, I've upgraded this to iOS 18.1, and mainly the reason why I've done that is because I want to test out Apple Intelligence, and this is one of the main reasons why I've done it, because iOS 18.1, if I put it on this phone, I won't get those features. It's something what is missing. Apple have made Apple Intelligence exclusive to all the iPhone 15 Pro models and all the iPhone 16 models at the time of making this video. You cannot get it on an older phone. Main reason is because of the amount of RAM what's inside, I think. But obviously this comes with 6 GB of RAM and this has 8 GB of RAM inside of it. And that's a big factor of everything going on in this phone. Now, so you won't get any of those kind of features. So I would say if you're looking for an upgrade and kind of a software kind of upgrade, you are going to notice that difference if you got yourself an iPhone 16 Pro Max. The only other thing I would also say is obviously software updates going into the future. The 14 Pro Max is probably going to get another, I would say, 5 to 6 years of updates on that one, and software updates, iOS, and you know, I don't know what version that will go up to, but obviously we will get here with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, we will get more software updates on this phone instead. We'll probably get at least 7 years on this phone, possibly even 8. So that's one thing to note there, that obviously, you know, if you do want to keep your 14 Pro Max for the time being, you do have quite a lot of years, but obviously you'll get even more with the 16 Pro Max, and you also get all those Apple Intelligence goodies too. But next of all, let's look at the camera differences and the video differences if we record and take pictures on these phones. So you must pardon the UK weather here, it's not the best as you can see, but here we are, iPhone 16 Pro Max at 0.5 zoom capability, and then obviously this is now at a 1x wide, the 48 megapixel here. This is what this looks like on this phone, so yeah, this is pretty impressive. And then obviously now this is going up to the 2x zoom capability, what we can also do on this phone, what's also pretty cool as well. But now this switches over to the 5x zoom capability that we have on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, what is really, really good. And then finally, this is the maximum what you can go at. This is the 25x zoom, what you can use on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And personally, it's not the best when you use that. But switching over then to the actual iPhone 14 Pro Max, 0.5 zoom capability here, what you can see. So yeah, it still looks very gloomy, very similar. But then this is the wide 1x sort of zoom that we've got right here. What you can see the differences there. And then obviously if we push this up now, we actually have got here the actual 2x sort of zoom capability, what you can also do on this phone. And then finally what we have is the maximum, what is only a 3x zoom, what you can use on this phone. But then obviously you can push this a little bit further with the digital zoom, but not as far as before. And this is what you get there. This is up to 15x zoom, what you get with the iPhone 14 Pro Max. But then for nighttime photography, well, the iPhone 16 Pro Max does a really good job here. Now, I'm going to say it was far darker than this, so it has really brightened up this image, so it didn't really look as dark. So it does look different. I am going to say that to you right now, but it is very, very clear. It's very good for nighttime photography. And then obviously using the 5x zoom, this is doing not a bad job either. It's not bad at all with that 12 megapixel inside of it. So let's move over then to the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and you can see that this is definitely behind. It's far more blurry. It's not as clear as the 16 Pro Max. So yeah, for nighttime photography, This is definitely going to be better if you want to use that. And then same with the zoom. Look at this, very, very blurry, as you can see. So yeah, the iPhone 16 Pro Max, even with its 5 times prism telephoto zoom, can do a far better job. But moving on then to video. So next of all, let's do video recording test. And I'm going to say it's tipping it down here in good old Britain. So let's do this quickly then. So this is a 0.5 zoom at 4K, 60 frames per second. So what we're going to do on both of these phones, 0.5. That's a 1 times zoom. We have the 2 times zoom. And then we have the 5 times zoom. And then we have the digital zoom, which can go all the way up to a 15 times zoom capability there. You can actually see the raindrops and everything there falling around. And now we're on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. We're at a 0.5 zoom, then we're at a 1 times zoom. And then after this, we can't actually go up any higher on the zoom. What we can actually do is we can make it go up to 1.5, but we actually have to turn off the filming and flick to a different camera. So I'm going to do that to go to the 2 times zoom. But then what we can do is we can switch to this 2 times zoom, and we can actually stretch this all the way up to a 6 times zoom on that lens. But if we want to go even further, guess what? We have to stop the camera again and then go back to a 3 times zoom. And then now with this, we can actually go all the way up to a 9 times zoom, as you can see right here. So moving on from this then, what about battery life on both of these phones? Well, the battery life on the 14 Pro Max was quite a weird one actually. It was actually slightly less than the 13 Pro Max that came out the year before it, what was a bit unusual. But the iPhone 16 Pro Max has got a far greater battery life than what we have in the 14 Pro Max here. You can see here we get hours more here in this, what's absolutely amazing. So especially if you have your 14 Pro Max from say new, and let's say your battery inside of it, the health of that has gone down to, I don't know, 80% or something like that. Upgrading to one of these new phones and obviously having it as a larger phone and the A18 Pro inside of it being even more efficient than the A16, you are definitely going to see a big battery improvement. Probably I would say obviously if your battery's degraded by say 20%, you're probably going to see probably about a 30% increase. So where this phone got to 0%, if you've got one of these at brand new, you'll probably get to say 30% battery left on this one. Obviously if that was brand new, and obviously you kind of did the same sort of things on both of the phones. That is what I'm going to say here on that. Was absolutely incredible when you think about it. And also it's the same with charging speeds too. Charging speeds are really, really impressive. So obviously with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it's still actually got the old-fashioned MagSafe charging. Well, can only go up to 15 watts with that if you obviously use Apple's MagSafe sort of charging capability. And then obviously you can also use 27 watts of charging via the Lightning port at the bottom. Whereas with the USB-C port at the bottom of the iPhone 16 Pro Max, this can actually go up to 45 watts now. What's really impressive. And also if you get the updated brand new MagSafe charger for the 16 Pro Max, plug it into a 30 watt charger or above, you can actually get 25 watts of charging via MagSafe. So definitely I would say, probably even in charging speeds, from dead to full, the 16 Pro Max is definitely be quicker at charging. So I would definitely say that is a big thing if you really, really want to have better battery life, and I would say better charging speed. The 16 Pro Max is definitely worth looking at for an upgrade there. But then moving on to the actual price. So the 16 Pro Max now comes in at 256 gigabytes of storage, and that costs $1,199 US. Now, when this phone came out, it only came out with 128 gigabytes of storage, and it cost $1,099 US. However, what I will say is if you upgraded to the 256 gigabyte model at the time of the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you actually cost you $1,199 US, the exact same price as the 16 Pro Max. So there are no differences there. So yeah, just be aware of that, that really there's been no price changes over those sort of 2 years in US dollars. Obviously, if you're in a different country or anything, then obviously, yeah, there are some differences there. But what I would say is if you can get some great trade-in deals for your iPhone 14 Pro Max, or you can give it to somebody else, you know, if you want to splash out extra money on one of these, or you know, if you want to sell it instead, then obviously there is possibly the chance that there's worthy upgrade here with the iPhone 16 Pro Max. And personally, I think with Apple Intelligence, and then you're getting all those features from the iPhone 15 as well, like the better zoom capability, bigger battery life, better charging, USB-C, you name it, I think then obviously the iPhone 16 Pro Max, in my opinion, is a worthy upgrade. I would say if Apple Intelligence hadn't come out, and obviously if Apple Intelligence had come out on say both these phones, then maybe I'd debate it a bit longer to say not to upgrade, but I think that's just the icing on the cake there that helps out to make that upgrade here for this phone. But those are my thoughts there. What are your thoughts, and are you thinking of upgrading? Let me know in the comments below. And also at the same time as well, guys, it's time to wrap up this video, so if you have enjoyed watching it, please do press the like button. Also, if you want to hear the latest Apple news, reviews and comparisons like today, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Until next time, guys, I'll see you really soon. Take care. Bye bye.